All right, welcome back. This week I finished up a much needed landscaping project around the house. I had this bed that kind of protected my house from a busy street. We planted a bunch of Arborvitaes, Hostas, placed some rocks and mulched it, and I think it worked out pretty well. So I wanted to share what I did. I know some of you, some subscribers, are looking for updates and what was going on here. I think it came out pretty well, and I wanted to share with you what I did. And then I'm also looking for a little bit of feedback for you guys of what you would add in the future and what you guys think. So stick around. All right, so really this project starts about 2 years ago when we bought the house, pre-YouTube channel. So as you can see, when we bought the house, there's a row of trees here that lines that side of the house to offer a little bit of privacy from that street. The only problem is all those trees were pretty much dead. So I took it upon myself to cut down those trees. Once I had them all cut down, chipped, and everything like that, I rented a mini excavator and dug out all the stumps. While I was doing that process, I did a little bit of regrading. I ended up digging a trench, putting in a French drain, regrading the swale. Then we ended up planting grass, mulching it. And this year I made a video about how I built my fence closer to the road. And then the project that we're about to start today is kind of the final step in the process. So normally when doing landscaping projects, the mulching is the last step of the project, but something happened that never happens to me. The mulch actually got delivered early. So this is 10 yards of mulch, and instead of letting it sit in my driveway, and you can see how it kind of spilled over into the grass and let it kind of kill the grass, I decided to start moving it. So we're doing this in a little bit of a reverse order, but I started moving the mulch and piling it up where it was needed on the hill. Took about 7 yards of it over to the hill, and then the other 3 are piled up in other areas around the house that I'm going to use for landscaping later. After all the mulch was moved, I went to my local garden center and picked up 10 Emerald Green Arborvitaes. I liked these because they did not grow as high. They roughly get 12 to 15 feet high and then about 3 to 5 feet wide. So they're a little bit smaller than the green giants, which a lot of people use. And then I didn't want to go with a traditional just straight hedge wall. So you can see I'm laying these out roughly about 9 to 10 feet apart in 2 separate rows, kind of staggering them, almost like the same kind of pattern that I have in my shadow box fence. Before planting the trees, I did come back with a tape measure and mark out exactly where I wanted them. I decided to go with an 8-foot spacing in 2 rows that were staggered, and the 2 rows were 4 feet apart from each other. Then using spray paint, I marked out the size of the root ball so that when I moved the tree, I knew how big of a hole I needed to dig. To actually plant the tree, I followed the instructions that the nursery gave me. They suggested digging a hole that has a diameter twice the size to 3 times the size of the root ball. I started off doing that, but it seemed like every hole I dug got a little bit smaller. I did mix in this tree and shrub soil to add a little bit of nutrients to this because, as you can see, the soil that I'm working with here is a really dense clay, so I wanted to add some nutrients to the soil. I used a combination of this soil and the dirt that I dug out of the hole. I broke it up into smaller chunks and then packed both of those down next to the root ball. I did leave about 1/8 of the root ball sticking out of the ground because I wanted the tree sitting up above the ground a little bit, and then made sure that I packed in that dirt and sloped it away from the trunk of the tree. Then the only thing left to do was to water it. Then to break up the consistency of the hill, I ended up buying these 6 rocks. They weigh about 150 pounds each, and they were about the heaviest things that I could pick up and get into the back of the Jeep. We then found 4 ornamental tall grasses. They're called maiden grasses. And then the one all the way on the left is a pampas grass, and it'll have these tall white shoots that come out of the top of it. Then I took these out to the hill and just roughly placed them in between the areas between the trees, some of them very close to the trees, some a little bit further away, to kind of break up the uniformity. Placing the rocks was kind of fun. I just kept rolling them around until I found the face that I thought was going to do the most for me. And my entire goal with the rocks wasn't just to randomly throw them up there. I was trying to use the rocks to make valleys or voids, or to pull ground out a little bit to make hills, just to break up the uniformity of the hill so it just wasn't a solid hill from start to finish. After rolling every rock around a few different times to figure out what face I was going to go with, some of the rocks I actually had to dig out ground and put into the ground to kind of make it appear like it's holding back dirt. And then some of the other ones I just had to place on top of the ground and pile up dirt behind them so it looks like that it's holding back dirt so that you're making valleys and hills and kind of breaking up that consistency of the hill. The important part for me was trying to make it look natural. You wanted to make it look like they were there, but also get the effect that you were going for. Then the next day, I dug up one of my hostas that was getting a little bit too big. And the crazy thing is, I just transplanted that in this place about a year ago, and it was about half the size. So these things get big really fast. The cool thing about a hosta is they grow in kind of like little pods or little sections, so that you can actually split them apart. And every so many years, I split mine apart and move them around, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. So I split this one hosta into 4 different ones. I planted it in areas on the hill to take up some of the open space. I tried to keep it not so uniform and just put it in open spaces. Then the last thing that I planted was a small juniper. These are really nice because they don't get really tall. They spread out widthwise, and it'll be a good ground cover. So overall, I'm really happy with the way that this turned out. And I understand right now it doesn't look 100% perfect, but that's the way I want it to look. If I put everything in their full size and I packed a bunch of stuff in here, I think in a short period of time, it would look really overgrown. So this, I think, is going to look its best in about another year or 2 or 3. Once the trees start getting bigger, those tall grasses will start filling in, the hostas will start taking up some more space, and maybe I'll add 1 or 2 small little things. But for right now, it's pretty good to go. You can see that the inside of the hill I left a little bit more bare or a little bit more plain. I'm going to have to figure out what I want to do on that side. Hopefully I can get maybe some bigger rocks to put on there. But for right now, it's just watering. So I'll water it about every 3rd day, and then I use the drip system that you can see here to water it in the evenings. All right, as always, I hope somebody got something out of this video. Hopefully I was able to show somebody something that they hadn't seen before, or maybe just give you an idea of maybe what you want to do or what you definitely don't want to do. But at any rate, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have some ideas of things that I could do next to make this look even better, or maybe something that you would have done differently, please leave those in the comments below, because I love reading those and interacting with you guys. But as always, if you're enjoying this and the type of projects that I do, I encourage you guys to subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in another video.